and welcome to ET Now. I'm Shrishti Sharma and today we are celebrating the World EV Day, which is observed every year in order to mark the celebration of e-mobility. Though the world is making a gradual shift towards EV and future picture is quite rosy, but do you know that EVs have a long history and the first practical EV is often considered to be invented by William Morrison of America around 1890s. Many experiments done, and now the big nation seems to be ready for this shift. But talking of India, where are we placed now and how India is set for taking a giant stride, let's celebrate that spirit and understand the dynamics from the people in the game. And with this, let me welcome on board three of our special panelists: Anmol Jaggi, co-founder and CEO of Blue Smart; Santosh Iyer, MD and CEO of Mercedes-Benz and India; and Gaurav Gupta, Deputy Managing Director at Motor India. And with this, let me invite my colleague Sumit Chaturvedi to take the discussion forward. So Sumit, the baton is over to you, and you also track the auto sector very closely, and the clear focus of the companies these days is on EVs, isn't it?
Absolutely, Srishti. Let's begin with Santosh Iyer, MD of Mercedes-Benz India. Santosh, thanks for joining us. You have come just from Munich, as we understand. First of all, what latest in electric vehicles did you see there, and is it or really a revolution that's happening, or it is just a hype?
No, firstly, let me clarify that it's not about hype, because I think most of the automotive companies have realized that that's the future clearly, and it is driven one from the aspect, because if you look at European markets and almost all the markets in the world, the the CO2 norms as they go into 2030 and 35, I think most of the OEMs will have to transition to electric. On the other side, brands like us also believe that there is no luxury without sustainability, and being operating in that segment, we have to be ahead of this transition. And so on one side, we are looking at not only cars and zero tailpipe emission, but I think the bigger focus is, can we achieve carbon neutrality? Because that is always the bigger question. Coming to your point on Munich, it's all electric. There was no combustion engines we could see in the entire show, mostly either plug-ins or mostly EVs all around, and that's the name of the game in the future. So what's interesting was also a lot of new ancillaries, a lot of batteries, a lot of motors on displays. So unlike visiting other motor shows where you could have seen only cars and certain ancillaries, here you can see a lot of electrical components manufactured. So it's a bit different feeling, and you can clearly see that the wave is there, and it's just not a hype, but it's all waiting, and the transition is happening for sure.
The transition is happening for sure, and we see that happening for not just Mercedes but the other companies, and across the segment we are seeing the excitement. But coming to you, Gaurav, MG, that is making big strands as well in terms of taking the EV revolution forward. Tell us, how do you see the India growth story shaping up for MG, and how do you see the transition happening?
Thank you for having us. Firstly, I would say at MG particularly, we brought in our second product, the ZS EV, and we showcased that and we launched it in the year 2020 itself in Q1. And that is what set the trend for us overall in the direction towards new energy vehicles. As a brand, we are always about innovation and technology, and EV stands up right there in terms of the overall stance. If you see the overall industry right now in the country, it is growing. The EV volumes are growing. We heard just Sumit talk about 1 million units in the passenger vehicle industry itself. Jan to August this year, the growth has been upwards of 125%, excess of 60,000 units of passenger vehicles. Right now, we are only a handful of players in the market, but we do see that this entire jump will take place in the next 2-3 years when you have more and more offerings for the customer. Overall, from an MG perspective, if I were to say, we are working in the area not only for bringing in products in electric vehicles. Today, we have 2 of our cars in electric, pure electric vehicles, and our percentage of EVs in the last current quarter is upwards of 25% of our total sales. We are working right now in the area for infrastructure. We put in about 12,000 plus chargers. We have associations with leading companies in India to associate and work with them to put up the infrastructure. We are working in the area for battery recycling, second life of battery, and as well as helping people educate and develop skills in the EV area. We firmly believe that the EV is the right way to go forward. And overall, as we see the next 5 to 7 years, this entire new energy vehicles, which will be about electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, and hydrogen in the future, will actually start to play a much larger role as we go forward.
My next question to you, Mr. Jaggi, what about the charging infrastructure? Range anxiety still remains with many users. How far have we come? How far are we still to go? So on this particular subject of charging infrastructure, what is happening across the country, and what is that's something that is being done by you as well?
Thanks, Sumit. So from our perspective, we've come a long way on charging infrastructure or the range of the car. When we started Blue Smart in 2019, we used to get a 110-kilometer range car. Today, the average car has a 250-kilometer range. So from that perspective, the range anxiety has come down quite significantly because 110 has become 250. When it now comes to the fact that what are we doing on charging infrastructure, we operate one of India's largest charging infrastructure. We have close to 1,500 fast charging guns, close to 4,500 slow charging guns in our portfolio, which help power the Blue Smart fleet on an everyday basis. So that's the quantum of charging infrastructure we have. But is it still a big bottleneck? It is still a big bottleneck. Blue Smart growth currently is only constrained by the lack of charging infrastructure and the speed at which we can build charging infrastructure. So that's where we are.
But Jackie, once again coming to you, because we did got the take from Gaurav as well as Santosh, and these both are into the manufacturing side. But when you are into the shared mobility, we have seen your growth across the years, not just in numbers, but the kind of expansion mode that you are in. So why do you believe that electric will be the preferred choice of the consumers going ahead, and what is the kind of growth that you are seeing in the shared mobility, and what role EV can actually play?
So, ma'am, from a consumer's perspective, consumer value service, and whether that service comes from electric or it comes from non-electric, it really only 10-15% of customers actually look at whether it's electric or non-electric. What is more important is no cancellation, no surge price, etc., which Blue Smart stands for. But more importantly, for fleet operators, electric is extremely important. Electric is unit economic positive. Electric helps us save a lot on fuel cost. Electric is the only way in which ride-hailing business across the globe will go profitable. So from our perspective, it is extremely important. And as more and more companies, startups start focusing on profitability, electric will be the only way in which they will go forward. From a customer perspective, only maybe 10-15% of customers care whether it's electric or non-electric. They more care for whether you're canceling, not canceling, what's the surge price, how clean your cars are. But from a fleet operator perspective, which we are, electric means a lot to us because electric is the only way we can go profitable.
To you, Santosh, I would like to know how much can these deadlines by companies themselves or by the government across the world, they have put deadlines, some countries have put 2030 or 2040 by which a certain number of their all vehicles will be electric, or companies, they have put deadline that all these vehicles will be electric or the models will become electric, including big ones also. What's your take on this? How far will that be helpful as far as changing the whole industry to EV is concerned?
No, for sure. I think this transition to electric mobility is a societal topic. It's just not driven from OEMs, and therefore governments in different parts of the world, based on the sensitiveness and also the economic condition, they have put certain either stringent benchmarks. Some of them are very ambitious, and it's also many of us are signatories to the Paris Climate Change Agreement. So all this is part and contributing to the bigger cause. On the other side, OEMs also realize today shareholders are ready to invest only when companies are green and sustainable. So therefore, from a shareholder perspective, it's quite important to do this transition. not just from an EV, but as I said earlier, from a carbon neutrality, because that's the final goal. We as a company have said by 2039 we'll be 100% carbon neutral, but by even 2030 we need to reach around 80% in many of the areas, and this includes suppliers on one side and dealers and the retail network also to make it carbon neutral. Coming to India specifically, I think it has its own set of challenges. The government took a big step, and I think there are two significant things happening in India. One is the lower GST for EVs, and the second is a road tax exemption that many state governments offer. And by both these factors, the cost of ownership of an EV, though the material costs are significantly higher than combustion engines, but at least we are able to compete, and then the customer finds value. The emotional aspect is, of course, the green number plate. Today, the moment you have this green number plate, there is a sense of pride, ownership. Among, you buy even a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, or even a luxury car, it stands apart. And I think, so a lot of policy making in the right direction. But where, if you ask the concern to put a number by when and what percentage, it's also the varying changes in state governments, because some of them have already withdrawn the road tax benefit. Some of them, come in, go out. We also expect the policy continuity on the GST, etc., to continue till the time we at least reach 60-70% penetration in the overall market. So it's a long way to go. As a brand, we are committed that 1/4 of our volumes will be EVs by next 4 years. And globally, we have anyway said that we will be 100% EV by 2030 wherever markets permit. So that's a global status, but it will definitely for sure change market by market.
Been your learning so far with Comet EV? Are people really looking for something which is affordable, in the sense that affordable at a lesser cost and more innovative features, or they're still going for your ZS EV at the higher end? What has been your learning? Because now you have two EVs, one at the lower end, affordable EV, very below 10 lakh rupees, and one at the higher end also. What's been your learning there?
Interestingly enough, the usage pattern is different. We are seeing a lot of people who are moving towards the Comet as expected. It's an urban vehicle for urban usage. And so therefore, the smart urban solution searchers are actually going for the MG Comet. It's a city car which gives you a very good range of 235 kilometers on a single charge. And that is more than sufficient for your usage for 2 to 3 days on a continuous basis as well. If you're looking at intercity usage on long highways, that's where people are looking at the ZS EV for their adoption. The Comet's uniqueness is its entire slick design, its entire turning radius, and more importantly, it's fully loaded with tech features like connectivity as well. So that is appealing to people as they start to adopt this new body style, as well as having this car for all their neighborhood usage and in-city usage. We are seeing a lot of adoption increasing, particularly, I would say, in southern parts of India and western parts of India, where their adoption rates of EV in general also is much higher across the country.
Okay, so that's the take coming in on affordability, but Santosh, can't come on the same question to you, because you recently made us understand that why Mercedes always charge a premium and why our products offering are in the luxury category. Why are they so expensive? All point taken. But what's your sense on affordability? Because that's the Mercedes-Benz target for 2030. But other than that, almost every major OEM has set a target for themselves. I'm sure that there are going to be more offerings into the same. Like for India, we are looking at Maruti Suzuki coming and trying to make a step in the EV maybe by 2024 or 25. But that's not an apple-to-apple comparison, I understand. But going ahead, do you believe that from the current market price, the EVs as an industry, and when you represent the passenger vehicle industry, the prices are expected to shrink? Are they expected to come down?
So overall, I can talk about Mercedes-Benz to start with. See, when you look at luxury segment and more so for Mercedes-Benz, and I can only quote Coco Chanel, luxury starts where necessity ends. So technically, there are rational purchases. There is a premium mass market for consumers. And then when you look at our cars today, the range we were discussing, a different range. Now, if you see an EQS, that's a range, a certified range of 800 plus kilometers. And I use it almost on a daily basis now, more than 700 kilometers on a practical usage, even in a country like India. So I think that's what differentiates. One is on the rational side. But when you come on the emotional side, you have hyper screen, you have different leather seating. So it's a bit beyond than what maybe you need to go from point A to point B. And therefore, I think for us as a strategy, we also came from the top end. We still don't have any entry level EVs. The next EV that we have is an 80 lakh EQB, again a range of 450, 500 kilometers, seven-seater, and a mini SUV there as such. But there is no intention for us to come down in the pyramid in the near future. Of course, in the long run, there would be worldwide we have the EQAs, the EQBs, and others, but nothing to compete with the premium or the mass segment. When it comes to India, for sure, I think it's a matter of time. Disruptions happen. I think my colleague and friend here, MG, took the lead along with Tata Motors as such. And if you see today in the PV segment, there is a lot of urgency now seen by other OEMs who seem to be a bit late. But it's a matter of time. And we firmly believe that more players are good for the market. More local players, more MNCs all coming to India, it will only expand and accelerate the transformation. So it won't happen as soon as maybe the Western world, because of, as I said, the policies are also a bit changing in states, in different geographies. Also, still long distance usage. Consumers still want to remain with combustion engines, but it's like a sauce coming out of a ketchup bottle. When it comes, it all comes fast. So I think we are all getting prepared. Infrastructure is getting ready, and it's all catching up. And I think the next 5 years will see the most exciting time for EVs in India. Lot of products, lot of awareness, and also consumer demand really matching up with that new product introductions.
Okay, so next 5 years looks very interesting. But Santosh, just to follow up that, because post-COVID, when there were demand concerns for the premium luxury car sales, we have seen just the other way around, and there hasn't been any significant dull moment onto the sales data till date. So going ahead, for EV specifically, how do you see the transition happening in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities? Because now the sales of your portfolio is not just limited to the Tier 1 or the metro cities, but there has been a lot of excitement in the Tier 2 and the Tier 3 cities of India as well. So how do you see the EV wave going in those places?
So the Tier 2, Tier 3 are better use cases for charging, at least in our segment. Many of customers have independent houses, they have factories and shops, so they can put a charger anywhere. They don't have housing society norms and others to deal with to get chargers and locations to charge. So I was recently in Bhubaneswar, for example, and even many other places. I can see a good setup. One can easily live with an EV in some of these markets. It's the larger cities where there is a maturity to come up. Also, when you look at practical side, housing societies, you stay in large apartments. Now, if everyone starts putting a charger, it will be next to impossible. So, how do those societies react? How does the culture come in some of these areas? So, Tier 2, Tier 3 don't seem to be an exception when it comes to the EV demand. More so, at least for us, but I think Gaurav can comment when it comes to their segments. How do they see that?
India will take in clearly a very starting position as far as the EV race is concerned in the world. We certainly have certain other things to be delivered as well, as we could find lithium ion reserves in one of the states in India, Jammu and Kashmir. What do you think, where all we can provide to this EV revolution, right from the battery manufacturing to lithium to EV sales also? Where are we currently situated as far as the overall, we can say, that framework of EVs are concerned?
So from a EV manufacturing perspective and a EV cell manufacturing perspective, I think extremely long way for India to go. On the cell side, we currently do not have maybe one real plant in the country which can produce cells of a high grade which EV manufacturers require. So it's a very long way for the EV cell manufacturing industry to go in the country. The PLI scheme, which was done about a year back, might result in something more positive, but we see that at least on the raw material side, which is primarily cell, India is not upping its game, and we need to do lot of work in the cell side, and even more upstream from there in raw materials. So I don't think we as a country are doing enough when it comes to raw materials and cells. From an EV manufacturing perspective, I think most companies are still most OEMs have still not started to build out EV cars in India. Some of them have knocked down units coming in from across the globe. So there is also still a lot of work which needs to be done on the EV manufacturing side. I think clearly only when we speak to a lot of large OEMs, they tell us that it's only when demand goes above a certain threshold is when they will be able to start kind of do absolute from scratch EV manufacturing in the country. But the key bottleneck will still be the cell. And even if the PLI, all the participants in the last PLI kind of set up their cell manufacturing units, and all of them run at 100%, we will still be woefully short of cell manufacturing capacity in the country.
And to Santosh now, before we sum it all up, you have, again, I can mention that, come back from Munich. What's the future of electric vehicles look from there? What do you think is going to happen over the next few years as far as electric vehicle future is concerned in India and across the globe?
So when I was in Munich, I not only was in the fair, but I was really, I would say, happy to see some of our future products actually, which I could see with a couple of our select partners. And really the future seems to be exciting with new cars. Couple of things that's very clear. I think the cell chemistry that we see today is not the cell chemistry of tomorrow. So the range will just go up. And I think there is a thumb rule also when it comes to India. The moment you cross the 450 kilometer, the range anxiety should go away to a large extent, because many cities then, and on a daily basis or on at least weekly basis, you are not as dependent to keep charging. So that should cross across segments. I think that's one trend that will again give a fast change. The second, I also saw a lot of cooperation among OEMs to partner for charging, because the conventional wisdom that was the government should support infrastructure and the players will give cars. But today, I think there's an increasing awareness that there is an equal responsibility for car manufacturers to also set up charging infrastructure, and also have this cooperation among them, so that we build the ecosystem and we drive this. So there are different trends, but in general, there is very clearly you see that that's the future. And with that, also a lot of emphasis on material usage. We could see green steel usage, so that you are using also not only tailpipe emission, but as I said earlier, you are ensuring that all the elements that goes into the car, recyclable materials, etc. And then, of course, end of life, what do we do these batteries? They have the second life, and a lot of work happening. So the entire ecosystem you can see developing at a fast pace. All of this should for sure make in India as well. To a large extent, and it also depends on a lot of enabling policies for sure, but it's all happening as we speak. You can feel it.
Well, with this, gentlemen, it's time to wrap this special edition on the World EV Day. Thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now and helping all our viewers have your take that where is India headed in terms of the EV revolution. Thank you so much, viewers, for watching as well.